Greetings once again, friends. After many months, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you back to Retro Unscripted. My name is Peter, and I thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video today. Today's video is inspired by Pat the NES Punk and Ian Ferguson, the duo that's responsible for the Completely Unnecessary podcast, or hashtag CU podcast for short. The two guys talk a lot about video games, wrestling, movies, entertainment. They cover a lot of great things, great topics. But one topic in particular in a recent podcast really hit me right here, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. The question was this: does game collecting fill a void in your life? Another way to look at that question, or a more general way to look at the question, is why do we collect retro video games? Why do I collect these cartridges and discs that you see behind me and in my shelving units all around Retro Central here? Why do I do it? Why do you do it? Pat and Ian talked about why collecting, whether it be games for Pat or records for Ian. They talked about it in their segment, and I'll link the video below. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what motivates me, what drives me to buy all of these classic video games. What has been my driving force for the last almost 3 years now? There are a few reasons, and I've talked about them before, but I think it's a good idea to summarize them in one video. First of all, the video games that you see behind me, the Nintendo games especially, really signify a turning point in my life. I still remember, considering it's almost Christmas time once again, I still remember when I got my Nintendo Entertainment System as a Christmas gift in 1990, and how excited and ecstatic that I was. I had been a Commodore 64 kid for a long time, and friends had an NES, but I didn't. So getting my own really turned me on to the world of console gaming for the first time. The Atari 2600 that I had spent time with as a kid was my maternal grandmother's. We had a ColecoVision that was working on and off, and I only played that maybe for a total of 10 hours before it finally died. So the NES in 1990 and moving forward was my first experience personally owning and maintaining a collection of console games. And it was really the gateway to the rest of my video game future. From the Nintendo, I went on to the SNES in 1991. Then I got a Genesis in 1992, Turbo Duo or a TurboGrafx 16 with CD later that year, a 3DO, a PlayStation, a Nintendo 64, and down the line. It all started with the NES. So games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Super C, Jeopardy 25th Anniversary Edition, games that I got on Christmas Day in 1990 still resonate with me and still bring back memories that are very intense, that are very important, and that are really special for me. And then as we go on, Super Nintendo games, Genesis games, Sega CD games like some that you see on the shelf behind me, these are all things that when I play them, I remember when life was simpler for me, to be quite honest. Even though I was working full-time at the time, I felt like life wasn't as limiting. I didn't have as much to do. I had more energy. I wasn't as prone to getting sick or hurting myself as I've been, especially since after I turned 40. It's almost as if my body's warranty expired and now it kind of falls apart piece by piece, even though that's not literally the case, of course. When I play a game like Ninja Gaiden, I can think back to when I spent time at my friend Chris's house and tried to beat it in one night. Or Top Gun, playing that and being at another friend Peter's house, and all of us just kind of teamed up to try and beat the game. We all took turns. We all talked about it and even trash talked a little bit, told funny stories. This is one of the reasons why Cinemassacre's James and Mike Monday series is really special for me, because it brings me back to what gaming used to be, at least for me. Sitting in a big living room with a bunch of friends and just having a good time, being social, sharing stories, and cooperating to be able to beat a game that we rented is something that is very difficult to duplicate these days. So, to me, collecting these games and putting them back in my collection after losing them for whatever reason, whether it was to make up for money that I didn't have to get new consoles, or because I was short on money and needed some, or because in all of the times that I've moved over the last 30 years, things are bound to get lost. There are a bunch of different reasons why the cartridges and discs went missing or weren't in my collection anymore. But I'm very glad to put them back piece by piece, knowing that this time they're not going anywhere. I've put together a library of over 1,000 games, and I'm very proud of that. But these are games that I can always go back to, and each one of them has its own significant memory for me. Even games that I'm playing for the first time now, years later. One example was playing Beetle Adventure Racing for the Nintendo 64 yesterday. I had never played it before. I had seen it. I was watching a demo of it when I was working for FuncoLand in 1999, but I hadn't played it myself. So playing the game for myself and feeling how good the handling was and checking out the really cool level design. There's one stage where there are dinosaurs in it. It's like driving through Jurassic Park, and that just blew my mind as someone who loves dinosaurs. I can create my own memories today, but when I don't, if I've played the games before, I can always go back in my memory banks while they're still working, and I can remember better times, simpler times, important or special times. So I don't think that it necessarily fills a void in my life as much as it does keeps me young and keeps me in touch with how things used to be. That's one reason. The other reason, and it's more controversial, and a lot of people don't like this reasoning, but it is what it is I've lost faith in modern video games, to be perfectly honest, and I've talked about this on camera before. The era of downloadable content and day one patches and games not working at launch, or content that you buy not working on the day that you get it. Things like that have just made me so cynical, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, that when the time came to determine or to decide whether I was going to spend another $400 plus on upgrading and joining another generation of consoles, I just said no. I said that to myself that it wasn't for me. It isn't for me. Why spend $400 on something that's going to make me even more cynical, that's going to be more negative, or that gives the opportunity for more negative feelings and more ways to feel shorted or slighted? I have no stake in it. I have no reason to upgrade. I look around at my library of games and my backlog, and I realize that as long as I'm collecting, I'm never going to run out of games to play. The only time that will happen is if one of my consoles dies and I have to replace that. But even so, replacing one of those consoles by and large isn't as expensive as dropping $400 on a PlayStation 4 or $350 on an Xbox One or even $300 on a Wii U. I don't have to spend that kind of money to still enjoy video games the way that I want to enjoy them. And that's really the key, is enjoying video games, enjoying a method or a medium of entertainment the way that you want to enjoy it. I certainly don't blame people for wanting to go out and upgrade their consoles and buying new PS4s and Xbox Ones. That's great. If that's what makes people happy and makes them excited, then I'm all for it. I certainly would not be the one to tell anyone that they should not do something or spend their money in a certain way. But for myself, after weighing the positives and negatives, it just made the most sense for me to take what little money I do have, at least until I graduate from college, and instead put it back into something that I know that I already love and value and treasure. And that would be retro games, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all the way on up to the PlayStation 2 era, which hopefully will be around for a long, long time because there's such a huge library of games for that system. So that's why I collect. That's why these games are important to me. Let me turn it around to you. Why do you collect, if you collect at all? Why do you add classic video games to your library? Is it for nostalgia? Is it because they might be valuable someday? Is it because you like to show them off? Or could it be something else entirely? I'd love to hear about it. In the meantime, what's going to happen with Retro Unscripted, you may be asking? I have semester break for the next month or so. I'm going to be taking a little bit more time off for the holidays. I have some family coming in, and it's not going to be possible for me to film. But after the first of the year, I'm hoping to put out one, maybe 2 videos a week, just catching up on some topics that I wanted to touch on before I had to stop filming because of school and injury and such. Once the semester begins again in late January, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the demand is, whether you guys like the new format, and just whether I can fit it into my schedule, as this semester looks like it's going to be just as challenging, if not a little bit more so, than the past semester was. So I can't make any promises, but at least for the next month or so, Retro Unscripted is back, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to check it out and to share it with friends. That would be the best compliment that you could pay me. I wish you all a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of the holidays to you, your families, your loved ones. May you get the most awesome gifts in the world, and may you give even more awesome ones. My name is Peter, and thank you for watching Retro Unscripted. I'll see you next time.